think back on one situation that I totally had to, for once, depend on the Lord, because there was no one else. Back in October of 2013, Pete had been sick throughout the night, and we had to go to the hospital early that Saturday morning. In about 3 or 4 hours at the hospital, they determined he had to have an emergency appendectomy, which is a pretty normal procedure. Being a Saturday, we had to wait on a surgeon team, and my children had called, and I told them I'll be fine. It's going to be maybe a one-night stay, so I'll be fine at the hospital by myself. So I took him to the ER, then we went to the OR and kissed him bye. He was fine. The surgeon said he'd be back later, and after a while the surgeon called and said it went great, and I was elated, so I started texting everybody, hey, surgery's fine, I'll update you later. And when I was able to go back to the recovery room in the ICU where he was, I noticed something wasn't right, and the nurse assured me that it was just simple. He needed to go walk, go to the bathroom, and drink something. And I wasn't argumentative, but I said something's not right. And they whisked him off to a regular room, and left us and said, if you need anything, call us. If you want to go get something to eat, go. And I said, no, I'll just stay right here. So I had gotten up, got him in bed and situated, and he still didn't act right. And I was standing in his room washing my hands, and I was talking to him from the mirror. And I asked him something, and he didn't respond. And I tried to make a joke out of it, and I looked in the mirror, and he was changing colors. And at that moment, I realized he had coded, and I started to do what I've been trained to do, and then I just realized I can't do this by myself, and so I yelled out into the hallway for some help that my husband had coded. It was a lonely moment at that time, and everyone came and they asked me to go out into the hallway. Being there by myself, you know, that's the first thing I thought. And then I fell on my belly in the hall, and I started praying to the one and only, the person that never has left me. And I think at that moment was the first time, or the second maybe, in my whole life that I've given and submitted everything to him, because I knew that that was the only way. I could hear what was going on in the room. It didn't sound encouraging. People were trying to comfort me, and I asked them to go away. I was with the Lord, and I just lay there. I didn't bargain with the Lord. I know better than that, but I did. For once, I knew I had to say, Lord, it's your will and not my will. And thoughts of being without him did go through my mind, but I knew that if that was the Lord's will, he was faithful to me. He would see me through that. Because I even remember this day, I said, Lord, if he sees heaven, he won't come back. And if that's your will, I can live with that. And the doctor whisked him back into ICU, and they let me go with him. They didn't want me in there, but the doctor was so kind. He said, she's by herself, let her stay, she's praying for him. And I was under the table with my hand on Pete, and they allowed me to stay there till they intubated him and was trying to bring him back around. But at that point, the doctor had let me go outside and sit outside the window. And you never know what people are listening to you say. There were people that came up to me, nurses and staff, and said, I can't believe how you were crying out to God out there. And I said, he's the only one I can cry out to. And I love him, and my faith is in him. And if something happens to my husband, the Lord's in control of this. And there was just people of the world saying, how can she do that? We were I was sent home that night. Even after he was in ICU, they wouldn't allow me to stay with him. That was the longest night of my life. I still went home, praising God for as far as he had come. I called every hour to the OR that night, just to check on him, and didn't sleep. Sit there and was with the Lord all night. The next morning I was up and got in the car, started the car, and the first thing was, "How great thou art." Well, I got all prettied up for my baby. Well, by the time I got there, red eyes, makeup had run, but he didn't complain. He doesn't remember any of that, and that next day on Sunday, we sat there and cried, held hands and cried, but we were praising God through all of it. And that is one thing I think is just a testimony for me, was to me totally to give that up to the Lord, to know that he had given me Pete. And I just think our marriage was wonderful before then, but I think that was another turning point, that you never know which day is going to be your last breath. And I just encourage people to love and to always be kind, even if it's not even your spouse, just someone in your family, because you never know. And I know by his testimony, he's a living miracle with what the Lord did for him, but I'm so thankful the Lord allowed me to see a miracle that day, to see somebody laying there without life, and then through his will, Pete was given life again. And I know we owe that to the Lord.